I'm back. Enough. Hi Taylor, my name is Azaria. I read, I write, I'm a creative writing student, and I live in Nebraska. Taylor, you know that I write way more than I read. I do read, and honestly, within the last year, so within 2024, I've probably read more books than I have since I was in high school. But in 2025, I really wanted to make it my mission to do more reading. This is for several reasons. The first being that I'm going to be going into my comprehensive exams. The comprehensive exams are essentially the last thing that you need in order to achieve candidacy. And at our school, it is comprised of creating 2 lists of 20 books each and reading those books, writing papers on those books. There's an entire comprehensive exams process that we have to go through. And so I think just getting prepared to read more books next year is going to be good for me. But I also want to make it my business to read more books for fun or just for enjoyment, since I'm going to be reading so many books for my comprehensive exams. I've picked 12 books that I know for sure that I want to read in 2025, whether that's for my comprehensive exams or for dissertation research, which comprehensive exams are usually a part of, or if it's just because I want to read these books. Some of these books I've also started already, some of these books I've read to completion already, and some of these books are older and not new by any stretch of the imagination. The first one is The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty. I actually got this book as a present from my thesis advisor when I finished my MFA. This book is character driven. Most of the books that I've chosen are character driven. It's also a National Book Award winner, and it's just about the inhabitants of a specific apartment building in a dying industrial town in Indiana. The novel has several characters that it revolves around, but it actually picks one character to kind of focus on, and her name is Blandine Watkins, but she was born Tiffany. This book is very weird. Its characters are so realized and lifelike and relatable. It really was a joy to read, but it kind of takes a really unconventional method in terms of its storytelling. There are also pictures in one particular chapter of the novel depicting a really kind of gruesome attack that happens. And I think the first time I was just trying to get my bearings and understand what's going on. So I want to reread it, kind of knowing what's going to happen and with a better grasp on the world and the characters, just to see how much I enjoy the book now. The second book that I want to read in 2025 is this book called Temporary People by Deepak Unnikrishnan. And it's just a short story collection, but it's very weird. I would consider it magical realism. I'm not sure if Unnikrishnan would consider it magical realism, but in the very first story, I believe it's the first story anyway, people transform themselves into luggage. And I believe, it's been a while since I read that story, but I believe it's to immigrate. All of the stories are called chapters, but I do believe that this is a short story collection. Like I said, it's been a while since I read it, and this is actually an ARC copy that I got while I was working at a bookstore. Like you can see it on the background. It's an advanced reader copy. And I was working at a bookstore and I was allowed to take the book home to write a review on it. And then maybe I'll tell you guys about that bookstore one day. We never ended up doing reviews. We never ended up doing much of anything at that bookstore. It was kind of really disappointing. But I just still have this book, and then I have some other advanced reader copies of books from that store, books that I was either going to do a review for the bookstore, or just books, advanced reader copies of books that my boss was just giving away for free. The next book that I plan to read in 2025 is The Townsend Family Recipe for Disaster by Shauna Robinson. She has several books. This one seemed the most up my alley because it's a sort of family narrative. I read about families a lot. And I've never read any books from her, but I'm really excited to read this one. Essentially, it's about a biracial woman who is marrying a white man, and kind of has this drive to get to know the Black side of her family after the matriarch of the family passes away. I really don't know much about this book outside of that. I don't know much about this author outside of that, and I'm probably not going to do any research before I read it. I'll save that for afterward. But I'm really excited to read this book and just to get to know this kind of new name, because I've never heard of Shauna Robinson before this point. All right, this next book is not fiction at all. This is actually a theory book, and as part of the comms process, we have to read a certain amount of theory, and this is just one of the books that I was recommended by one of my professors, and it's The Dark Fantastic by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas. And this is actually, I thought that I had like lucked out and found like a signed copy that she was selling, that Ebony Elizabeth Thomas was selling, but this is actually signed for someone named Samantha by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas. So it is cool to have a signed copy, but Samantha, come on Samantha. But this novel is just about how Black girls, Black women appear in speculative fiction, and I write magical realism and speculative fiction. So I just thought that this was really fitting, and whatever my dissertation project is going to be, I'm thinking about changing it. Don't tell my advisor. I'm sure that this will become relevant. This book is called The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. James McBride also has a pretty big novel called Deacon King that I want to read, and I have, and so I'm going to read at some point, but this one I'm going to read first. This is the one that I purchased first, and I'm pretty sure, I did a little bit of research, like I read like an article, and I'm pretty sure that this was kind of this is his most recent book, but this is kind of also just the book that really just kind of jumped things off for him. He's been writing books for years and years, and this is just the one that took off for whatever reason. And I know that it's about a city called Chicken Hill and the people that live there. Once again, I haven't read too deep into the blurb. I haven't done a bunch of research on this on purpose, but I'm really excited to read it. It's really dense. It's a dense book. And I read, I want to say maybe the first couple of pages, and it reminds me of a Jabari Assim kind of style of writing. And Jabari Assim is one of my favorite writers ever. So I'm really excited to read this one as well. The book I plan to read next is by Britt Bennett, The Vanishing Half. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's about twins. One chooses to pass as white, the other one chooses to be Black. And my novel, Project Girls, which I'm hoping will be my debut novel, is about twins, and I am really interested in writing about twins from a non-stereotypical lens. I feel like when you're writing about twins, there's this tendency to either make them sort of attached at the hip or complete opposite. And I think sometimes that can make the writing seem a little flat. Even my own. I actually got some feedback similar to that. Maybe one day we'll talk about that. But so I'm just really interested to see how it's working in this novel. And then additionally, I'm interested to see how she kind of writes about passing. I am studying sort of politics and the sort of Black elite for what I think will be my dissertation project. And so I'm definitely interested to see how Britt Bennett handles that. I've read books like Our Kind of People, Damn Near White, books that are about sort of masquerading or kind of living in between these two worlds when you are someone biracial or just a person of color who is lighter skinned. And so yeah, I'm really interested to read this book. I've had it for years and years and years, and I just never read it. Depending on how I like this book, I might also read The Mothers, which I think Britt Bennett was a part of. I want to say that was written by multiple women. The next book that I plan to read in 2024 is Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. And this one was made into a motion picture with Michael B. Jordan. I really like that movie. Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Foxx, and Brie Larson. It's a good movie. And I wanted to read this memoir because one of my characters in Project Girls is a lawyer. She is specifically a prosecuting attorney, and Bryan Stevenson is not. He's a defense attorney, and then he helped sort of create this program that trained defense attorneys, and they would represent clients for free. So I'm just really interested to read this novel to sort of see how Bryan Stevenson describes navigating the legal system. I especially am interested in this perspective of navigating the legal system as a Black man who's on the other side of things, even though he is a defense attorney, right? He's not a prosecuting attorney. He's not putting people in jail. He's trying to get people out of jail or prison. But I'm just interested in sort of how race may or may not play a role in the way that he conducts himself in his work. The next book I plan to read in 2025 is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nane Kwame Adejei-Brenya. And he also wrote a book called Friday Black, is what it's called. It's a short story collection, I believe. And he has some kind of cosigns, some blurbs on the back by some authors that I really love. And I really think the premise of this novel is really, really interesting. It's about a game show, essentially, kind of like a Hunger Games style game show, but the contestants are prisoners. So it's kind of like that Black Mirror episode, maybe. When talking with agents about Project Virginia, which is a short story collection that I'm working on, and a previous short story collection that I was working on for my thesis and my MFA, a lot of them sort of compared my work to this book and actually told me to reach out to this author's agent to see if they would be interested, since it has a similar vibe. The next book I plan to read in 2025 is Ghost Roots by Pemi Aguda. I like Pemi Aguda a lot. I believe that I first heard of her when she won the Miami Book Fair prize. And I want to say that was maybe 2021 or 2022. And she writes magical realism. I believe she also writes maybe like horror short stories, but they're really, really great. And she's actually good friends with someone in my program. And so that's interesting as well. But I'm really excited to read this. It's just a short story collection. And I want people to read more short story collections. The next book I plan to read, I actually started reading already. And I had to put it down because of school, and so I'm really excited to pick it up again next year, is this book, What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez by Claire Jimenez. Claire is actually an acquaintance of mine. Hi Claire, I love you. It's one of those things where like I just like look up to her so much, and she has my number, I have her number, and I just don't ever text her or anything because I just feel so intimidated. But she's a very nice person, very sweet, and she is a professor currently, actually. But What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez is her debut novel. She had a short story collection previously. This is her debut novel, and it actually won the Penn Faulkner Award in 2024. And it's just about these three sisters. One of them is Ruthie, and Ruthie goes missing one day, and then they see a woman who looks exactly like Ruthie pop up on a game show, and it just sort of unfolds from there. It's definitely like a lighter book. I don't think it's YA necessarily. I do think that it has some literary elements, but it is a lighter book in comparison to a lot of the other fiction novels that I'll be taking a look at. The next book that I plan to read is called Other People's Skin. And it's just 4 novellas by 4 Black women put together. I am really interested in collaborative writing, as long as I can find someone whose kind of writing style that I gel with and whose work ethic that I gel with. I would really be interested in doing a collaborative writing project. And so I'm really interested to see how these ladies fared and how these 4 novellas work together. I think this came out a while ago. 2008 is when this was released. So I'm really excited to take a look and to see kind of what ground they covered in this collection, novel, mashup, whatever it's called. And last but not least, the book that I want to read in 2025 for sure is Sula by Toni Morrison. This is my favorite book. This has been my favorite book since I was 14, but I have not reread this book in years and years and years and years. Sometimes I will read short excerpts from it or chapters, but I haven't read the book in full in such a long time, and so I really want to do that in 2025. And that's it. I definitely plan on adding to this list as new things come out, as I'm doing research for my comps lists, and as I find more books that I want to read for fun. But for right now, those are the books that I'm picking. 12 great picks that I know I will not regret reading in 2025. What are you reading for 2025? I know you have a long list of books to accomplish for the month of November, Taylor. Are you looking ahead to 2025? Who knows? I don't know. Let me know. All right, have a good day. Have a good day.